There's been some debate about whether Nancy Pelosi should be Speaker of the House again ever since the Democrats won the House for the first time in 8 years, or rather 4 election cycles. I'm one of the people who believes that she shouldn't be for reasons I will describe in a few moments. Just waiting to see if some people will come here. I'm, looking and waiting. But firstly, one of the larger factors has to do with popularity. She has a 29% approval rating, which means there is bipartisan opposition to her just as a politician. And that's actually even lower than Hillary's approval rating, which is 36%, which is weird because usually when presidential candidates are done running and they go away for a few years, people remember them more fondly. But she hasn't had that decision yet because she's just kind of going around still being a public figure and not really advocating for anything. And that's kind of the charm of a lot of the people I've seen that support Pelosi. It's not really about what exact policy can you attribute to her being in a position of leadership, but more so, oh, I want a woman to be in this job. There was a person on Twitter I actually had to, I don't want to say scold, but respond back to negatively because they had said, oh, if you don't like uh, Pelosi, you're being misogynistic. And, I'm literally reading this as I'm someone who supports Barbara Lee taking the position of Democratic leader. She's been in the House for about 20 years, I think, 98. Bottom line is, in a lot of cases, people have to start grasping at straws to find reasons to say, you're opposed to this person. But I think what it is that people get used to the status quo so much that whenever you threaten to shake something up, it just reeks of them wanting to believe that you're going out of your way to mess up whatever progress they think they're achieving. A lot of people who defend her will say, "Oh, well, she got the ACA in the House." It's like, yeah, but they had a Democratic majority when it happened. What has she done in the last 8 years of there being no majority where they can pretty much pass whatever they want? A little, tip: anytime one party controls the chamber and a majority of its members agree on a set number of issues, you can get it done. If the Democrats wanted sweeping gun control, for example, they could have that. If they wanted something on the environment, they could have that. Well, they won't do that because of the fossil fuel companies that they take their donations from. So they do this thing where they go, oh, I disagree with this one provision, and it never gets changed because of their donation from that particular person or company rather. But I haven't seen a single policy that has been suggested or advocated for by her. Like a lot of the people that I've seen try to defend her, I've actually seen go after, Bernie, for example. I said, look, you can not like him if you want to, but at least he advocates for things and introduces legislation. I don't see Pelosi doing that. I don't see most of these other Democrats doing that. And to be fair, I think the media does a really terrible job with covering representatives. They do an okay job with senators, but most of the members of the House you might hear in the news maybe twice a year, 3 times, and then if they're the party leader, 7, 8, 9. But none of them really get that kind of intense scrutiny that someone such as McConnell or obviously Trump, the president, would get. So theoretically, you could have had someone introduce something, but I haven't heard of it. Not without trying to hear of it, because I go out of my way to diversify my sources. So sometimes I go to Fox, sometimes I go to CNN, The Hill, these different places. And if you're not getting talked about on any of those websites, and I have to go to your state newspaper, that should tell you how little media cares to cover you. I've actually criticized Fox for doing that. It seems like they just cover the same 5 people over and over again. It's Trump, a little bit of Pence, a lot of Ocasio-Cortez, some Bernie, and maybe a little bit of Hillary or Elizabeth Warren. But other than that, no one else gets covered for whatever reason. It's incredible to me that you can have people sit there like do the Democrats in the House ever think to themselves, Why did we keep losing election cycle after election cycle after election cycle after election cycle? We're not talking about the presidency, mind you. We're talking about every election between 2010 and now. So they lost in 2012, they lost in 2014, and they lost in 2016. All these different 2 year terms where they go and they run for re-election every 2 years if you're a member of the House. So in each one of those 2 year terms, it just kept getting smacked up over and over. We're never being able to get enough seats. And one of the things they like to do, which really annoys me, is they try to shame the voters into feeling bad that they weren't in control. Well, if we had had higher turnout, this wouldn't have been a problem. It's like, yeah, but look at your individual candidates. Did they go to colleges? Did they go to I don't know, hospitals? Any place that has regular normal people and not donors? The answer is probably no. So it's just them repeating the same problems they've had for the last few years. And one of those issues is not getting new leadership. I've said it before. I'm not opposed to term. I am opposed to term limits because I believe that if people want to keep electing someone over and over again, they should be able to do that. But whenever you have an elected official who is deeply unpopular, and you put them in a position of high notoriety, that is reeking of failure on your part to recognize where the people are. As I said before, and I can actually put the link in here for the person that's watching once. Pelosi has a 29% approval rating, which means the overwhelming majority of Americans, whether Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever, don't like her. And it's lower than Hillary's. At least Clinton is almost close to getting the 40, a couple points down from that. But the bottom line is there's something wrong in a representative democracy when the representatives want to put somebody at the top of the pecking order that is disliked by most people. And I guess the Republicans are really are similar because obviously McConnell has a low approval rating too. I think he has the lowest one of any sitting senator in their home state, which is that's something of an accomplishment. Out of the 100 people there, you're the one who sucks the most to your constituents. But then somehow you've been elected to 6 terms. I don't know how that works. It could be that the Democrat he's running against is crappy, which is exactly what happened last time. But that's a story for another day. So when you have leaders on both sides that nobody really likes, it always feels surreal when you go on social media, like Twitter or Instagram or any of these other places, and you see people who go, I hope we get Pelosi again, man. She's been such a great representative. Like, I'm reading this comment yesterday, and this person is talking about she's such a skilled strategist. And like, but she lost 3 elections back to back. And, let's not kid ourselves. There's one reason. The reason Pelosi is going to stay as Speaker, as I predict, is the same reason why Schumer is staying as, or rather, excuse me, stay as Democratic leader, is the same reason why Schumer is staying as Democratic leader in the Senate. These people, the two of them, Pelosi and Schumer, pay out their constituents, or rather their colleagues in their chambers that are, part of the same party, to keep voting for them over and over again to stay in those leadership positions. Pelosi's main asset is that she raises the most money, so she gives chunks of it to different members and goes, hey, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine, and then she stays in there. It's not the person who's the most qualified, not the person who's the most popular. Like if we lived in a decent democracy where people who knew they weren't accomplishing much could stop being narcissistic and having this big ego to where they have to sit there and be in positions of power, we would have probably Elizabeth Warren for Democratic leader, or Barbara Lee again for House Speaker. And that would just be so the people who are saying that this is some kind of game of the sexes could be quiet. Because whenever you have to go to that nonsense, that's usually when you run out of arguments. We're here for policy. At least most of us are. There probably are some people who get opposed to that, but it's not the overwhelming majority of individuals. Otherwise, that person wouldn't have been Speaker in the first place. That's how dumb they sound when they say that. It's just them trying to obfuscate from the reality, which is that the person you want is not liked by most people. They have no accomplishments. Nobody can think of anything that they know. I remember Fox. It was right when the election cycle for this last presidential election had started, so when it was during the primaries, and they went around asking all these, quote unquote Hillary supporters, can you name an accomplishment of hers? She was a senator for 8 years. What bill did she pass that was signed into law, or that you can name and say, hey, that would have been a great law if it actually became law? What thing did she do to where he said, wow, that's so great? And no one could think of anything. Now, people can argue about education, and we don't teach people about senators and representatives, but theoretically, if someone is going to mount a bid for the highest office, you would have heard of them before, or at least know something that they did that would make you think, wow, this is someone who's qualified, that knows where the issues are. And going back to what I said about her being a narcissist, it means that she herself probably does think that she's very qualified. But if you were to say, hey, your approval rating is this really low number, she would probably say, oh, just ignore that, or don't pay any attention to it. And those numbers are significant because whenever you have people who play a large role in whatever you're doing and they're not liked by most people, they turn off most people. For example, if I were part of a group that said, hey, we need to, I don't know, pass environmental reform, we need to, be concerned with climate change. And then I go out there and I'm knocking on doors going, hey, we need to be concerned about climate change. And then people are going around their poll and they're saying, what is the approval rating of Justin among the people who live in this state or the US or whatever, and it's 21% or 30, I'm going to take a back seat because I believe in the cause I'm advocating for, but I don't want it to be strained by being associated with someone that in the case of myself, most people don't like. Again, in this hypothetical. So when she says, I'm qualified because of my achievements that I can't name for you conveniently because there are none, she's basically saying, screw what the people want. What's going on? Let me say hello to Dream Villain. Yeah, it's 3 people in there. I wish the other people would say something, but it is what it is. That was the whole point of doing the stream. You get to have the interaction, go back and forth. The other person gives their opinion, whatever. I guess not. But going back to what I was saying, when you have someone that is directly involved with some high profile position, and they purposely are ignoring their approval rating, they are screwing you over. It's not a coincidence that during the years that she's been minority leader, since the Democrats lost the House, it took this long for them to get it back. The Republican candidates weren't that great, but I think, and I actually can't believe I'm just now getting on this. One of the common occurrences that you'll see when people run for the House is they'll try to, Democrats in particular, is the Republican will try to attach whoever that liberal leaning person or Democratic leaning person is to Pelosi. They'll go, this person's part of the Pelosi playbook and they're going to obstruct the president because they know. Yeah, thank you, Dana. I do as well, but they know that sticking her name to you is going to make people go, ugh, Pelosi, I don't want somebody that's going to be on her side. I'm not voting for that individual. It's a really simple concept, and it works. Think about it. It took them 4 cycles. As I said before, Republicans are not, their positions are not popular. Go issue by issue. Most people don't agree with them. But if it took this many cycles for the Democrats to flip the House back, and during that time they had the same person who, as I mentioned earlier, polls at 29% approval rating. It's not a coincidence. It took them that long. Imagine how many districts would have flipped earlier if we got rid of her as far as being in leadership. Like, you never heard anybody talk about her. She didn't have any power other than just being a member of the House. No, Dream Villain. She's been speaker since I was in kindergarten, 2003. Rather, not speaker, Democratic leader. My mistake. She was Speaker for 4 years when the Democrats had the House from 2006 to 2010. Democrats have been decimated on Pelosi's watch, lost more than 900 legislative seats. Exactly. I'll never forget that speech Obama gave about maybe 2 or 3 weeks before he left office, where he was talking about the need for Democrats to visit all these different areas. I'm just thinking to myself, under your watch, along with Pelosi and Schumer, the Democrats lost the House, the Senate, the White House, most of the governorships. I think it was like 30 Republican governors in blue states. And again, as you mentioned before, hundreds of legislative seats across the country. And they're giving advice. I'll tell you something, if I'm in a leadership position and under me the exact opposite of what I want happens, which again, if you're the Democrat, it's bad that the Republicans get all those seats. I'm not going to come back for leadership. I'm going to bow my head in shame and embarrassment and never show myself again until my party does better or people forget who I am. But you know, the crooked way that Washington works, where people get money for supporting a narcissist like Pelosi, is they'll say, "Hey, screw you for thinking differently than the rest of us." You saw them go after Ocasio-Cortez for going and protesting in her office. That's where I read so many dumb comments. Who does she think she is to be going against Pelosi like this? Like, are you serious? Pelosi sucks, and she doesn't do anything. And now you're upset that someone who actually has legislative power. See, it's different. It's just a bunch of activists. They can't go after any of them in particular. But now you're upset because someone who is in a position of power, or at least is soon going to be in one, is trying to make some change. I thought the whole point of why people were sick of career politicians was that they don't do anything. Dream Villains, I thought I was crazy. I knew it's been that long. Thanks for clarifying. No, I get those years mixed up too. So she's been Democratic leader in the House for 15 years, 75% of my life. And then she's been Speaker of the House before. So it's not like this is some new position that she's just going to, we're waiting to see what she's going to do. Quite the opposite. My God. People just keep reliving the past, same screwed up mistakes. It's just like I sit here earlier today and I was reading those comments again because they're so, you know, I have that on my Twitter profile, the Twilight Zone video in the thumbnail or whatever, in the description box, because I believe that as far as politics is concerned, we are literally in the Twilight Zone, because it seems like you can run any crappy, terrible candidate, and no matter how corrupt they are, no matter how awful their positions are, they will always have that solid 30% of people that support them just because they have a D or an R next to their name. And then when you call this out and you say, hey, look at the actual positions of the people that are, you're advocating for, otherwise supporting, and whether they try to do anything to advance those positions, you get criticized for it. Like the same people who are sitting over here and trying to tell you need to like Pelosi because she's not Trump are the same people who got pissed at all the non-voters and people that voted for third party instead of Hillary. As I said before, the way elections used to work is they would have two choices. One of them would excite you, one of them would annoy you, and you would pick one. And they would be their job to appeal to you. And the way it works now is the Democrats are owed your vote no matter who you are. And if you don't support them, you're a bad person. You're against progress. You're every evil word in the book. And you're going out of your way to destroy democracy with Trump. You and him are arm in arm. I remember being on Twitter 2 years ago and this guy talking about, if you don't vote for in the election, that's half a vote for Hillary. What? I didn't realize I could give a 50% vote by not voting, but okay. Both of these unpopular nominees, yeah, sure. I still have the message on my in my archive or whatever. And I look at it sometimes, it just seems so ridiculous. And even as years have passed, it still feels insane. People actually, like this guy actually said to himself, it is smart for me to say, you are helping this person to win by not voting for them or their opponent, by just leaving it alone. Because in reality, whenever you get high voter turnout among younger people or any of these different ethnic groups, there's a higher chance the Republicans are going to end up being screwed over. But see, Pelosi and the rest of the Democratic leadership, if you can even call them that, are not interested in trying to appeal to people with ideas and things that are brand new that they've never heard of before. So they go after a lot of individuals who probably, are on the fence about voting and make it to where they scold them for not doing it, or they're at least their supporters do, and they say, okay, well, screw this. I'm not going to vote for either one of you. It's it's the never-ending cycle of toilet water. Like, I just feel like when I watch the Democrats and their reactions to every single election cycle every 2 years, it's like watching a Ferris wheel and a hamster just seeing that it could get off at any point, but just staying on there and running and running and running. And I feel the same way about a lot of their supporters. I've had people who've said that you're trying to disenfranchise Democrats from getting votes by bringing up ways in which they suck or ways in which you think they suck. You're handing the election to Trump. You're a fake. What do you call it? You're a closet Trump supporter, just for simply saying that you could have better than what you currently have. Your opposition party, as I've spread on Twitter over and over again, has a House leader and a Senate leader, so Schumer and Pelosi, who've both criticized Trump as far as his behavior is concerned, but then voted to give him $717 billion for the military to keep all those 7 wars going. But these are the people I'm supposed to believe are the resistance and that are gonna hold his feet to the fire. Yeah, it's like a hamster wheel with the Democrat. Yeah, but it's that way for multiple reasons. I'll give you an example. The district I live in, I'm not going to say the name of the politician because she doesn't deserve any name recognition, but she went out and she was able to get was it like 2,000 people, 200,000 people to vote for her. And the only other person running against her in this Democratic district was a Republican who got about 10,000 votes. But I didn't see a single sign put up by her. I didn't see a single campaign stop that she did. I didn't hear a word about her even seeking re-election. I just saw her name on the ballot and I said, wow, that's kind of stupid. I'm not going to vote for this person again. Or at all. Every time I see her name on the ballot, it's just the other person. Always, every time. But she was able to coast to re-election because she had no big opposition. Didn't campaign, didn't do anything whatsoever. I saw no attempt on her part to advocate for another term. It was just people show up at the ballot, they click her thing, and then that's it. I was astonished. Said, wow. But again, when you have no real competition, you can get away with doing that kind of thing. That's how Hillary felt. She thought, oh, Trump, everybody's going to write off Trump and I'm going to, coast to victory. I was hearing about her winning Texas because the state is turning purple or whatever, all this stuff. And it blew up right in their faces. And it was the funniest thing ever. And then as I'm sitting over and I have all these people talking about all the evil things that are going on under Trump, like this thing with this journalist, for example. And I'm like, dude, you guys are that worked up about one guy that got his head cut off for, horribly, admittedly, but nonetheless, you're that pissed about this one person that died when thousands were killed in Yemen, first under Obama and now under Trump, and you keep quiet about it. At least the Democrats in Congress keep quiet, except for what, Ro Khanna, and that's it. So they've proven themselves to be full of it nonstop. So let's do a little, before we close this out, a little forecast of what's going to happen in the next 2 years of her being speaker, unfortunately. Someone's going to put up Medicare for all. Someone's going to put up a Green New Deal. Someone's going to put up prison reform. Someone's going to put up any particular progressive policy. And in each instance, you're going to get a number of people that we already knew were going to vote for it to vote for it, or at least advocate for it to get a vote. And she'll either ignore it, shelve it, or vote against it if it manages to get enough traction. And that's the disturbing thing about the Democrats and the fact that they're even able to get supporters. People literally only go to them because they see a couple of issues that I guess they're more progressive on, and they say, "Oh, that's the party that's opposed to Trump. Sign me up." But it's never, "Hey, why don't we actually try to do something revolutionary while we have control of Congress?" Like, could you imagine if all the Democrats across the U.S., at least in the House and maybe in the Senate too, ran on themselves, just not, they didn't say Trump's name at all. They just talked about what they wanted to do. And then when they got in control of Congress and they passed whatever policy I just named, and Trump tried to veto it, they overrode it because they had so many votes to do that. But they don't allow themselves to really appeal to anyone that's not already, in their perceived base. So that's why they try to run these moderates that think, "Oh, if I just act like the other person, I'll win," and then they get smashed up. Like Donnelly and Heitkamp and McCaskill. Sounds right. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. It's the status quo continuing year after year after year because no one challenges these people or tells them where to go or what to do. And they're able to buy their way back into power by giving money to their caucus members, as I mentioned earlier. So when they see someone like Ocasio-Cortez not taking any cash and protesting in their office, they go, "What the hell?" And their supporters are surprised by it too. There was a guy who wrote that Pelosi was the CEO and Cortez was the new worker under her regime, and I'm like, Pelosi didn't hire her. She's representing the people that do not like. Most people don't like Pelosi. That's the truth. 29% approval rating. God, think about that. Her approval rating is what, 7 points less than Hillary's. How terrible of a politician do you have to be to where you start dipping into the 20s? It's always 30%, no matter who it is. Hell, Collins pissed off all these people voting for Kavanaugh, and she still has a 30% approval. Now, it's a crappy, terrible rating, but it still is in the 30s. Because there's always going to be that slither of individuals who look at trash and say, "Give me more, give me more, give me more." So, Barbara Lee would be better for speaker. She was the only one that voted against Iraq when it first came up. Yeah, they dream villain. No matter think of any celebrity that you don't like, and look at all the people that follow them and support them and talk about how great they are. There will always be somebody for everybody when it comes to support, as it pertains to public figures. That's just the reality of the situation. But going back to my closing argument, Barbara Lee should be speaker, although I doubt it will happen because the Democrats are not bright. And they care more about money than they do about actually getting anything done that shows that they're a party of something besides, "I don't like Trump" and Mueller investigation and Stormy Daniels and other nonsense. Elizabeth Warren would be better off as leader in the Senate, but they won't do that because, again, they're paid out by Schumer to keep voting for him. So it's a crappy process, but hopefully in the next coming years we can get people to primary both of those two and get them out of there, and really run on the example that this isn't about being opposed to that particular politician. It's about wanting to actually do something with the representative of that district and believing that the person who's currently there is just seeking to be a figurehead for the same problems we've had that led to Trump and led to everything that is coming afterward, which is trash. So thank you for watching. Have a good day.